Everyone. This is Jaime from Virtual Latinos, and I have here Alejandra, who's our marketing manager from Virtual Latinos. So I'm going to let her speak first, but welcome to our webinar.
Hello, everyone. We are super happy to be here and having you join us on this brand new webinar. We haven't done this before, so it's a brand new topic, and we are really excited to share with you all the details on hiring a virtual assistant one-on-one. This will be a guide that Jaime, our CEO and founder, will share with you. And how does it work? How does it work to hire a virtual assistant in 2021? So I will let you guys with Jaime, and we can start our webinar. Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Alejandra. And yes, it's a brand new presentation, and we're going to want to try to guide you differently compared to past webinars in different steps. And the idea here is we're going to share how you can hire a virtual assistant from wherever you want to hire them. It doesn't have to be actually necessarily from our company. We'll definitely talk about that in a minute in terms of what we're going to cover, but I want you to know that this presentation will be no matter where you're going to want to hire a virtual assistant from. All right, so let me get started. I am going to be putting the slides up in full screen, so you might not see me. The system that we're using for the webinars has been constantly changing, so just know that, of course, I'm going to be here. And definitely, I encourage you to write any questions that you may have during the presentation. I may be answering them throughout the presentation. Otherwise, we're going to usually wait till the end to answer all questions. We're going to spend about 40 to 45 minutes during the presentation, and then we're going to have about 15, 20 minutes to answer lots of questions, which usually happen at the end. So let's get started. All right, so the topic for today is hiring a virtual assistant 101, which usually refers to like the basic idea for doing in general anything that you're going to be talking about. Usually those are the classes that you take in college with the numbers 101. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So this is me. I am Jaime. I am from Mexico City originally, but been here in the US for quite some time. And I created this company, Virtual Latinos, about now a little over 2.5 years ago in 2018. And it was actually started from a marketing agency that I created before, where we were looking for virtual assistants that were in our same time zone. But we're not going to talk about the details of that yet. Just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview that I'm really a marketer, but now we're in recruitment. I've hired people that are virtual assistants in India, the Philippines, Tijuana, Mexico, and now, of course, all over Latin America, not just in Mexico. All right. So let's discuss what we're going to be kind of sharing with you today. So we're going to kind of really show you the 5 main steps of how we divided the things for how you're going to have to hire an assistant. But usually the first step is actually learning what really is a virtual assistant. So we'll start with that. Then we're going to determine whether you actually need an assistant or not, or maybe, you know, what type of assistant. Then we're going to discuss things of what the assistants can do for you. And that's probably the most important part. A lot of people get stuck on, you know, I need help, I'm busy, but like, what can an assistant do for me? So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about, you know, where to find virtual assistants and how to actually go through the process of finding them, interviewing them, and hiring them, right? So we're going to talk about all those topics today. So let's get started with the first one. So what is a virtual assistant? And this has been kind of a debated topic lately with our internal community of assistants, because in fact, virtual assistants were probably just assistants, which usually means some type of admin work or secretary type of work. But the reality is that today, a lot of the terminology of virtual assistants is really wrong in terms of it's not just assistants. It's more like what we decided to call our actual community of assistants, virtual professionals. So in fact, Alejandra is in the process of helping us update some of our marketing to include that word, virtual professionals, and not just virtual assistants. Now, what does that even mean? It simply means at this point, now that COVID happened, pretty much everybody knows that you can just work remote. So the words remote or virtual are very similar. It just means anybody that can work from their home or office remotely. They don't have to come in physically into the office, right? Now, they can have a lot of variety of skills, not just administrative. So, you know, there can be people that can technically be called virtual assistant, but they can be in marketing, which is really a virtual marketer, or in sales, or in customer support, or procurement, or a bunch of other areas within business, right? So it's basically someone who can help a business working from home. So they could also be called remote workers. So now, how do you hire a virtual assistant? Now, this is kind of what we mentioned earlier. It's important that you kind of know the process, which is exactly why it's great that you're at today's presentation. So we're going to walk you through it. Taking the right steps at the right time is super, super important. And I'm going to share with you how I did it myself. Of course, the first time when I was really just me and a few other people in my team in the marketing agency, but I was fully in charge of trying to hire more people. So I did this part on my own, right? So let's talk about that. So step one, do you really need a virtual assistant? I'm guessing if you're listening to this presentation is that yes, you probably are. So now, usually the most common thing of why do you need a virtual assistant is usually because you're busy, right? There's so many things that you're doing and you don't have time to do everything, and you're probably working more hours than you maybe want, or you just want to do so many things but just don't have enough time to do it, right? So if you're spending a lot of time doing either repetitive tasks or things that are very administrative, or you just have a really long list of things to do, you probably clearly need help, right? And that's very typical with the clients that we work with. They're entrepreneurs, business owners, and usually got way too much going on because they're usually wearing 10 or 15 different hats in terms of the different things they do. Now, some businesses we work with are like a one-man team, but we also have businesses that they already have like 10, 15, sometimes 25 people, right? So it really depends in terms of who is the type of client that's thinking for a virtual assistant. But what I'm trying to say is you can be a small company, a big company, or just a solopreneur, and you can still probably need a virtual assistant, right? Now, another thing to consider is, can you afford it? Okay, and we're going to obviously talk about that in a little while, because usually when you are a small company or just a one-person entrepreneur, money is tight and it's hard to spend or invest money to hire more people to be able to grow. But then you're like, well, if I don't invest, then I can't grow to keep growing to get the money I need to keep growing, right? So it's like the chicken or the egg, which one came first, sort of thing. But in any case, we're going to talk about pricing in just a minute so that you learn more about that. Now, step two. This is probably the first real step in terms of actually getting to hire an assistant. And it literally means figuring out what do you need to do, right? What do you need help with? And so I'm going to share with you, I purchased a book a long time ago about virtual assistants. I don't recall the name of it right now. Otherwise, I would definitely. I just remembered. Virtual Worker. It was a great book written by a guy who basically created a company to hire VAs from the Philippines. So I kind of read the whole thing and I said, okay, let's do it. And kind of one of those steps was like, well, once you're ready and you know that you want to hire someone, literally sit down, make a list, and take a breath and literally start writing all the things that you do today. And then you start dividing it into what is something that you have to do yourself and what is something that you could give to someone else to do, right? And that's going to be the part where you start dividing, okay, what stuff that only I can do or what stuff that I can probably give or outsource to someone else. So that's an important question. But now, so let's talk about these things here. So if you already know what type of help you need, that's great, but most people don't. So if you don't, this is what we're suggesting. Make a list of all the tasks that potentially you don't want to do, or you don't have time to do, or you don't know how to do them because you just don't have the skills needed. For example, updating a website, or maybe doing social media management, or creating a complicated email marketing campaign, right? Whatever you might not know how to do, it's a great thing that you can outsource. And another thing that you can outsource, even if you know how to do it, is things that are very repetitive, right? And I'm not sure if it was in that book or another book I read in terms of saying, you should always outsource things that someone can do basically for lower amounts of money, because your time as a business owner should be the most expensive. So you should give someone else work that you shouldn't have to be doing, right? So repetitive tasks are very common things to outsource. Okay, now let me share with you at least some of the industries that we currently help, just to give you an idea of different types of companies that a virtual assistant can help. I mean, the reality is that it's practically anybody that has a business that can be somewhat managed remotely. And today, if you really think about us humans, we're kind of, no matter who we are or what we do in life, we're all kind of in front of the computer. Whether you're a doctor, you're going to be looking at a computer, or an architect, or a project manager, or probably a lawyer. Like, at some point of your careers, you're usually looking at a computer, which means there's a lot that can be done through the computer, right? But here are some industries to just consider. Marketing agencies, we help a lot of those. Property management companies, real estate companies, law firms, medical offices, and healthcare. There's a lot of other industries that are, of course, not here, like software companies, construction companies, cleaning companies, just professional services, fitness and coaching, a whole, set of different types of clients that we can help. So just think about that. Probably whatever industry you're in, you can probably get help. So now, knowing what your assistant will do for you will set you on the right path to finding the right person, right? So, like we just mentioned, if you just have zero time to prepare before you start hiring, that's a big, big no and a big mistake. So, part of the process of hiring, and we see this all the time with our clients, some people call us so desperately because they really need help, but at the same time, they really just don't have time to even sit down and think about what they need help with, right? And actually, for that reason, we've created a whole recruitment process which makes it very easy for clients so that they don't have to think about it too much. We created some forms that they can fill out with all the options that they can just kind of check with a check mark instead of having to type and think about it for too long. But what I'm saying is, regardless of how you do it, you got to spend some time making a list, whether you do it in Word, in an email, in paper, in Google Sheets, whatever you decide. Make a whole bunch of tasks that you need help with, and ideally you need to divide them by category in terms of the type of tasks and by importance. Those are kind of the two main things: category, importance, and then who would be in charge, right? And that's where you get to decide if I'm in charge, or it's something that you can outsource. Now, if you're going to outsource it, which means you're going to hire a virtual assistant to do it, it doesn't mean that that person that you're going to outsource it to can do everything. And that's something that's also super a common problem. People call us and they need help with 15 to 20 things. And we're like, awesome. I mean, we're totally here to help you, but you probably need more than one person, right? And most people, of course, agree. Now, obviously, when that happens, we always recommend that actually they don't start hiring 3 or 5 people at a time. At least from our company, we always tell them, look, slow down, hire one person first. Instead of 20 things you need done, pick the top 5 or 6, and let's find someone who can help you with us, right? And then you can come back and hire more people. All right. So now, figuring out your budget. So there's a whole range of pricing when it comes to hiring virtual assistants. It depends, of course, on the type of person that you're looking for, the level of experience that they have, what country they're in, how far the dollar goes in their country, and a lot of other factors, right? Now, in our company specifically, depending on the amount of hours that you need, the pricing is different. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, right? But generally speaking, you gotta know how much money you can invest to hire someone, whether that's part-time, let's say with 10 hours a week, or all the way to full-time, which is usually 40 hours a week. You gotta have at least an idea of what you can invest in someone so that you're not totally surprised, right? And I'm gonna tell you something that you might not like to hear, but if you really just don't have the budget yet, don't try to hire somebody just at the lowest rate just because you're so desperate. Maybe it's best to get a little more money, or maybe get a few more clients so that you can actually afford to pay your assistants a little higher, because it's going to make the whole difference. Now, by a little higher, it might be 50 cents extra an hour to maybe $1 or $2 an hour extra, but that difference makes a huge difference for the type of assistant that you might get. In this case, if you're talking about looking for someone outside the United States or Canada, or of course outside Europe, right? In countries that are let's say less developed in terms of their industries, but they gotta be, of course, more affordable for people to hire. And that's one of the main reasons people hire from outside the US. The costs are much lower. Now, we're not going to talk about all that necessarily today, unless, of course, you guys have questions. I'm going to definitely answer whatever you want. But let's get into some of the details and examples. Now, this graph or graphic a while back when I did a presentation here in San Diego live before COVID, of course, and we were actually doing a presentation along with another person who hires a lot of people from the Philippines. And so for everybody who was there who just wanted to learn about virtual assistants in general, we wanted to just kind of put all the options on the table. So here are all the options. So let's go through them. Now, before I go through them, let me remind you something important. These prices are being considered assuming you are going to be hiring the assistants on your own. That means not necessarily hiring them through an agency. Okay, that means you're going to go to a bunch of websites that we're going to tell you that exist, or you're going to go to different places where you can hire people directly on your own. Now, if you're going to use an agency like the one we have, pricing is definitely going to be different because, of course, the company needs to make money too, right? But still, the difference is not too high. Okay, but now let's start with some examples. Now, of course, this is just a range. Every company is going to charge differently. Every country and every specific person is going to be different. Okay, now, generally speaking, in this graph, we're talking about what we call entry-level assistants, sort of like people that are going to be a little bit basic and not intermediate level and not expert level. Okay, just so that we're clear, because yes, you can hire somebody in the Philippines for $20 an hour if you find the right person with the right skills. Okay, so now India tends to be probably the most affordable because unfortunately, yes, in India the economy is not necessarily great in terms of the rupee against the dollar, and hiring people in India is just really, really affordable. And I'm sure if you're in the US, you've probably called some call center where somebody in India, answers the phone. So there it's like $3 to $4 an hour. And of course, it can potentially be less depending on who you find. Now, the next one is in the Philippines, which is about 8-hour difference between the Philippines and the West Coast in the United States. Generally speaking, the prices were between $3 to $5. I definitely seen that.
Jaime, hello. I think we stopped listening to you. Hello? Sorry, guys, I'm gonna try and track Jaime down. Probably he had technical issues, but we will be back on a second. Yes, sorry, guys. Can you hear me? I'm seeing here Gus.
Yes.
Let me know if you can hear me. Okay. Hi, Jaime. Yes, we lost you for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it looked like my internet connection died. Even in the US, yes, the internet connection can sometimes die, and it's pretty annoying, especially if you're doing a webinar. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, so where did I left off?
The last thing that we heard, you were talking about the Philippines and how they have increased the amount of how we pay now, but then you cut off.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, the Philippines has definitely changed potentially a bit lately in terms of the pricing. But now let's move on to Latin America. So in Latin America, you can certainly find people that are going to be potentially $4 to $5, but it's probably going to be a little higher, more like between $5 to $7 an hour if you're going to be hiring them yourself. And we're going to talk about where you can hire them in a minute, including of course through our company, which focuses specifically in Latin America. But you can think about that as being like the minimum kind of range. Now, just to be clear, there's a lot of countries in Latin America. Some of them are definitely richer than others. So definitely there's going to be a difference, for example, between Venezuela compared to Costa Rica, which is a more expensive country, or Mexico. So, there are going to be differences. So just keep that in mind. But now the next one is probably going to be Eastern Europe. And in fact, I am part of a mastermind group where we have a group of 4 people, including myself, that are in recruitment and having people that all work remotely. And the other company is a very similar business model to Virtual Latinos, but they only focus on Eastern European assistants. In this case, specifically only sales assistants. And then, those pricing, the price of those assistants, in some cases it's lower than Latin America, depending on the country, but in most cases it's a little more expensive just because it's Europe, right? Now, the next place would probably be the US. In the US, you could potentially hire somebody, let's call minimum wage, depending on the state you're in, for 15, 20 bucks an hour that can work virtually and can work with you and do a great job. But we're going to call those like really, really beginners, okay, in terms of doing their virtual assistant work, let's say professionally, right? It might just be someone who just wants to work online, but is not necessarily an experienced actual assistant or experience working remotely. Now, the truth is, after COVID, practically everyone's working remotely, so that might, not even be that relevant anymore. But in reality, I'm going to jump ahead for a second and talk about the US as well. That the truth is, I am part of a few Facebook groups of virtual assistants in the US, and most people who ask, hey, how much should I charge if I've already been an assistant for, 2-3 years or blah, blah, blah. And like most people say, you got to charge no less than 30, 35 bucks an hour, right? If you already know what you're doing. And that doesn't mean they're an experienced person in a specific type of industry or role, but just someone who can do a little bit of everything, like a general virtual assistant, okay? Now, before that, of course, I skipped Western Europe. There's certainly people that you can hire all over Western Europe, in France, Spain, England, and all sorts of countries there, which is, of course, also more expensive than Latin America or the Philippines, but usually, potentially, in some places, less expensive than in the US. So the truth is, of course, the range really depends from which country and who you're hiring. Any questions so far? I'm going to take a breath because I speak like crazy fast. No questions. All right, let's move on. Sounds good. So now, where can you find a virtual assistant, right? That's usually a big question. Of course, the obvious is to go to Google and type the words virtual assistant, and let's see what Google tells you, right? And you're going to probably find hundreds of pages related to the term virtual assistant. So we're going to kind of help you and kind of tell you, straight away places where you can hire them, so you don't have to think about it for too much. So now, there are websites where you can hire people from all around the world. You guys might already know of them. Some of them, or the most popular one, is probably Upwork. Upwork.com would used to be called something else, but now it's just called Upwork. And you can find talent from all around the world with all types of pricing. And it's a platform that really just has a lot of different people with a lot of different skills from all around the world. It's definitely great. I've hired people through that platform before in India. I had my bad and my good experiences, but the biggest concern of doing this yourself is you're going to still have to spend a lot of time in this platform, posting jobs, writing jobs, interviewing people, but it's definitely an option. If you're interested in hiring, for example, somebody in the Philippines yourself and not through an agency, the website that's the most popular, it's called onlinejobs.ph. And, I have no problem in sharing this with people because we're not really competing with them. They're in a different time zone and market. So onlinejobs.ph, that's the website I used when I hired people in the Philippines. And then there's a lot more from all around the world. But I'm going to just mention those two for now. All right. Now, we're going to compare a few of these options that we kind of spoke about between our company, specifically talking about the agency model where we do all the work for you and you basically don't have to do too much. You obviously still got to be involved in the recruitment process, but we do all the time-consuming and intensive work of qualifying people, talking to them, interviewing them, looking at their CVs, and really just finding the best candidates for you. Okay, so now we won't, of course, have time to go through this whole slide. So we're happy to send you these slides at the end of the webinar so you can see them in a bit more detail, but I'm just going to go through a few of them. Now, our agency takes about 7 to 10 business days to go through the recruitment process, which is about a week and a half to 2 weeks, which some people, of course, think it's too slow. We think it's pretty good based on the quality of work we do, where we find you really specific assistance for your specific needs, basically within 2 weeks. Now, if you were doing it, this, for example, with an in-house staff, you would probably take 1 to 4 or 5 months, depending on how complex the hiring that you're looking for might be. So the in-house could take longer. If you're trying to look for a virtual assistant in the US, you could also take around the same time, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how you find them and how you hire them. And in the Philippines, if you're going to hire on your own, you're probably going to take a while. And I can tell you from experience that I spend way too much time writing job posts, going through hundreds of applicants who applied, trying to figure out who I should interview and not waste my time. And then, of course, interviewing them and maybe again a second time. So, of course, if you were to hire from an agency from the Philippines, things would be different, right? But the point is, it usually does take a while. Okay. Now, in terms of the pre-vetted talent, number 3, so we vet absolutely everybody. So before they even are presented to you as clients, we have already pre-vetted them. They go through a process, the assistants that take them between 4 to 6 weeks, potentially, and then it takes another week or 2 weeks for the actual recruitment process for the client. So we really vet everyone. Now, if you're doing this in-house, you're obviously not vetting anybody yet. When they're coming, you don't know who they are, right? You're starting from scratch. And if you're hiring somebody in the US, it can vary, but usually, they're not really pre-vetted unless you're using a company like ours that vets them too. Actually, one of them, if you're looking for people in the US, is called Virtual.com, and there's more that are popping up all around the place as well. And now from the Philippines, if you're using onlinejobs.ph, they are not definitely pre-vetted. Now, they definitely have reviews, which is a positive thing, so at least you can get an idea of who might be better than others. But the truth is, they're still not really pre-vetted by the company, right? And now we could keep going through this, but I want to definitely have time for questions. So I'm going to let you guys look at some of these differences later when you get the slides if you like. But of course, one of the last things I'm going to mention is that the most important is the fact that people in Latin America have the same time zone as us here in the US. And that was the reason, or one of the main reasons, that I chose to create this company. I was not happy with hiring people in the Philippines. Having this 8-hour difference was not great. Plus a bunch of other problems like the internet, even though, as you saw, my internet also went out, but usually it does not, right? And now, finally, before I move on to the next slide, our success rate is super high compared to the typical churn rate from companies that hire virtual assistants or remote staff. And the reason we have a very high success rate and a very low churn rate in terms of assistants who are leaving or clients who no longer need them is because we really do spend the time that's necessary to get to know the clients and to get to know the assistant. We, in fact, spend a total of about an hour talking to our clients, which is a lot of talking and listening as well, between talking and listening to really understand their needs. Compared to, for example, other companies where you just fill out a form only and they promise you candidates within like 1 or 2 days. We don't do that. We rather be slow and quality in terms of doing that. All right. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So let me move on for step 4. What is the process to continue to hire an assistant? So we mentioned that one of those steps was creating the list of tasks. And once you have that list of tasks, the next step is really thinking about, even if you're going to hire through an agency or not through an agency, if you spend some time writing a job post or writing a description of exactly what it is you're looking for, you're going to make yourself a really huge favor of really defining in writing what it is you need. And I can tell you that probably 95% of our clients never have anything in writing before they call us, okay? Which is why we're here. We help them go through that process and we kind of write it for them. But when people come to us and they already have a job uh, post, let's say, or a specific list of things they need and everything's in writing, we know that they've done their homework and, we can help those much faster, right? In fact, I usually tell the clients when they send me all their information, because I can tell them that, look, you're not ordinary. Most people don't do this, right? So they usually are well prepared. Now, I think that you should highly think about spending time to think about writing a really good description of, who your company is, what's the role description, not just the list of tasks, but how do you see this person or virtual assistant working with you? How is this assistant going to work not only with you if you're the owner, or with other people in your company? It's really important to really help explain how this assistant will be part of your team, right? And then, of course, writing the list of tasks, as well as writing a list of requirements in terms of, what skills do these candidates have to have, potentially with what type of education, or anything else, right? There's a lot of things that you can write. And in fact, when we create the job descriptions, they are really long. In fact, sometimes I'm impressed we write so much, but so far it's worked, and it weeds out the people who don't want to read things. But yeah, we make them very, very specific because we want to really try to match the best candidates with the best clients. All right. Now, step 5. Let's assume, you posted a job on one of these sites, or, you ended up going through an agency. In either way, you're gonna be ending up with some candidates that you like, or that have applied to your job, or that we presented to you if you hired through a company. And now the next step is to decide, who do you want to interview? Because I can tell you that if you're trying to hire someone and you're not gonna interview them, that's a big, big no-no. You should never hire someone that you haven't talked to yet. And I will tell you, unfortunately, we have had clients who are so desperate to hire someone, they're like, just send me a bunch of resumes, I'll pick someone and I'll hire them, and I need them by tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Now, that's a really bad idea. And if you don't have the time to interview someone, you're probably not going to be very successful once this person gets hired, okay? So now that that's been said, so you got to think about, who should you interview? You got to think about if the assistant is going to be potentially reliable, someone you can trust, someone that has, the experience you need for the tasks that you need help with. The whole idea is trying to find, obviously, the best candidate for your needs. And that's usually, easy to do if you have the right information, and super hard to do if you don't have the right information, right? So for example, when we present the candidates, and we're going to share with you actually a sample at the end of the presentation, we provide a lot of information about our candidates. We include their photo, where they're from. We include a clip, an audio clip, so you can hear them speaking English. We include English tests. We include personality tests. We include, of course, all of their history, work history, education, and then we include all the notes that we took during the interviews when you hire them through our agency, right? So we interview them first, and then we send you the candidates that have already been pre-interviewed, pre-selected, and we share with you all the notes so that you could technically not interview them. Now, I still suggest that you do, but through that process, we literally give you the quick notes of everything you need to know about each candidate. So that's why we make it easy, and people are happy when they hire through us. Okay. So now that's kind of, the overall how it works to hire an assistant. And of course, once you interview the right candidate, then you just got to decide, who's the right person. And then, of course, give them the opportunity to work with you. That usually means you need to offer them a set amount of hours per week or a set amount of hours per month. You got to define the pay rate of how much you're going to pay them per hour, how often you're going to pay them, which method of payment you're going to use to pay them. And all of these things should certainly be in writing, and hopefully in a document that you can share with the assistant that they can also sign, so that everybody's really, on the same page of how it's all going to work. Okay. Now, we're not going to go into the details of that, because for some people that's very obvious, for some people it's not. But those are more of like the details that we would go through if you were to hire, through our company. We'd be happy to share those details with you later. Okay, so now we're going to spend about the next 10 more minutes explaining to you kind of how we do it at Virtual Latino so that you get a little insight into how we do it. And then we're going to open it up for questions. Okay, so let's get to it. Now, here we're talking about the Virtual Latinos agency, which is what now about 98% of our clients hire through. We do have still something called a directory where you could hire our assistants on your own by paying a membership. So I'm going to mention it to you because it still exists, but practically almost nobody's using it anymore. And the reason most people don't use it is because it's a lot of work and it's very time consuming. In fact, that's how we started our company, but now we shifted into the agency because that's how we realized we can help the most people get to the right candidates in the fastest time and giving them a guarantee and the support they need if they have any problems. So now we basically provide the full support before, during, and after the hiring process when you hire through the agency. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Right. So now we kind of divided this into 4 steps, but it can also be divided into a few more steps. So the first step is you guys discuss your hiring needs with us. That usually means talking to our team, usually me or somebody from my team, where you're going to tell us kind of what you're looking for, who your company is, why you need a virtual assistant. We do this first step like in part A and part B. The first one is the initial call where we just gather initial basic information. And then if you're interested, then we spend another, between 30 to 40 minutes with you on the phone and we interview you. And that's probably something that's not that common with other companies. Well, we really interview you. We really want to extract all that information from your brain and really understand, what you're looking for, so that we can really understand, what you're looking for. Then our team, step number 2, our team finds the perfect assistant. So this is where we take the 7 to 10 business days to actually go through the recruitment process. We only recruit and choose candidates that have already been pre-approved in our community. Okay. Now I won't have time to go into detail about how the whole process works when we vet and accept assistants into our community, but I can tell you at least some quick statistics. We accept about 7.5% of all the people who apply. We recently checked how many people had applied since we began, and we now have over 20,000 people who have applied. But actually that 7.5% is getting smaller. We're actually accepting less people because we have so many people applying. And, we go through a whole process of vetting them to make sure that it's people who speak English, who are going to be professional, who are going to know how to, take directions, pay attention to detail, and a lot of things that we think are super important, no matter what types of tasks the assistants are going to be doing. Okay. Now, at the end of those 7 business days, you're going to be getting actually an email with 3 to 4 candidates with a PDF of each of them, so that you get to see the information of each of them. Now, let me make a pause. Claudia, do you perform background checks or confirmation, or do we confirm the information on the resume? Great question. The reality is no, we do not do any background checks. We decided that it was not needed for our purposes because the recruitment process was so much more extensive than the typical recruitment process where people just send their CVs and then you just decide are they good or are they not good. We make people go through a really long process on purpose. We make them do like little quizzes, little tasks to really make sure that there are people that are going to be committed. Now the reality is that yes, if we don't do a background check, people technically, could be criminals, let's say potentially. But we're basically assuming, if they're college graduates, they speak English, which is not that common in Latin America, for example, compared to the Philippines or India. We're thinking people are educated, people are professional workers. So, they're not likely to be people that are going to do potentially bad things. Do we confirm the information on the resume? We also do not, in terms of confirming it with like third-party sources, but we certainly, when we interview them, we ask questions to make sure that they really know what they're talking about. And I can tell you that our recruitment team is very good at that. So we determine what skills they have based on the answers that we get from them when we interview them. Because some people, sometimes put on their resume, yeah, I know how to do social media and email marketing or blah, blah, blah. And then when we ask questions, we know they don't really know how to do it. right? So our team of recruitment is now made up of 5 people, and so between them, they have a lot of different skills to really test, at least through an interview if they really know what they're talking about. So hopefully that answers the question. Now, number 3, I'm going to go back to step number 3. Yeah, happy to help, Claudia. So step 3 is actually interviewing the candidates, like I mentioned earlier. So we're going to send you 3 to 4 candidates, and we're going to ask you to choose the top 2, and then we're going to set up 2 30-minute calls on Zoom. So you get to chat with them, ask them whatever you want, get to know them. And usually after that, we'll send you an agreement. And once you sign the agreement, we're going to do an onboarding call also on Zoom, where our customer success team will walk you through all the steps for how to actually work with our assistants, how to communicate with them, and how to do everything. We kind of give you a heads up of how to do everything, which systems to use, and then we share with you their name, email, and phone number so you can get in touch with them directly. Now, Ellie's asking, how soon could I interview the assistants that I like? Usually the next day. We send the PDFs usually by 8 p.m. on whatever day we promised you. And if you're up late at night and you get back to us the same night, by the next morning, we can give you the link to book the calls. And if the assistants are available, which they usually are, you can interview them either the same day, which is the next business day, or the day after. So pretty quick. Can I interview them all or only one? Great question. So you usually are going to be interviewing at least 2 people, but you could interview 3 or more. But the most common is we ask you to at least select 2. Okay. Great. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I love it. Now, step number 4, basically we manage all the assistants in terms of, we do the billing, we provide the support, we provide them with resources to keep, up to date in terms of the different tools that they should be using with their clients. And we have a whole community in the background through the platform called Telegram that we communicate with them. And we do a bunch of other activities with them to keep them involved and engaged. Okay, Isaac, I will actually answer your question in just a second in terms of what happens if you don't like the candidates. Okay. Okay, so I'll answer that question for now. So if you don't like the candidates that you end up interviewing, what usually happens is if you did at least interview 2 people, which is our requirement, then we would go through a second round of recruitment where we would take another 7 to 10 business days, and then we'll actually give you a whole new set of candidates so that you can pick from them as well. All right. All right, thanks. All right, so let me move on to this slide. So here's a little behind the scenes, I guess, statistics of that, let's say, funnel of our recruitment internally, first for accepting or vetting people into our community. Now, this is kind of the whole process from somebody that applies all the way till someone gets hired. So out of 100% of the people who apply, we initially qualify and accept about 75%. Then about 22% end up completing our full application, and that's because it takes a long time. Like I said, the whole process takes between 4 to 6 weeks, but the whole application can take them quite some time. Out of that 22%, we end up accepting about 16% of the people, and we tell them, hey, you look good, we'll accept you, and now here's a bunch of other stuff you need to do. And we then give them a little task, which is to create their profile in our company. Now, it might look like a simple thing to do, just like creating your LinkedIn profile, but it's not. I, on purpose, made it very difficult. I created like an 8-page document, single-spaced, of instructions for exactly how to do this with very, very specific instructions. Now, it's really more like a test to make sure that they can follow directions. And if you look at the math, out of 16%, we end up only having in the end 7.5% of the people who end up actually getting accepted till the end of the process. And that's because a lot of people just either get lazy or don't do the things correctly, and then we don't accept them, right? So the statistic is about 45% of the people we accept do not get into the last step of being actually welcomed into our community. Okay. Now, out of the people that do end up getting accepted, of that 7.5%, we end up basically hiring the top 1 to 3% of them. Okay. That's a little behind the scenes information. Any questions? No, not yet. Okay, perfect. So let me move on. Now, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about why we think you should consider hiring from Virtual Latinos. So here's 7 reasons why we believe that you should consider hiring from our company. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have top handpicked professionals. That represents again the 7.5% that we do end up accepting, and in the end, really the 1 to 2% that we end up hiring. And that's of course great because everybody is really professional and really the top of the whole community of people who wanted to apply. Of course, the most important for us in general of why we work with people in Latin America, not only are they professional, but they're working on the same time zone as us in the US. And that's a big, big factor. That was the biggest factor for me and for a lot of our clients as well. The next one is the fact that, of course, everybody is bilingual. That means they speak English as well as Spanish because they're, native Spanish speakers. But we also test their English to make sure that they can professionally perform their job in English. In most cases, the people that we have are experienced professionals. The very minimum is to have at least 1 year of work experience, but we have people with 20, 25, or 30 years of work experience. I'm not sure exactly right now what the average is because we definitely have a lot of younger people between 22 to like 35, but we definitely also have people on the older side as well. Now, the other one is we believe it's pretty easy to onboard people to start working with you because we find you the best 3 to 4 candidates. We make it easy for you to interview the top 2, and once you hire them officially through us by signing the agreement, we do this onboarding process that we really walk you, step by step of what are the first things that you need to do in terms of understanding, let's say, the rules of the game in terms of working with somebody virtually, right? And I think that's really, really been super helpful to our clients. We've received a lot of positive feedback. Additionally, about 2-3 months ago, we created a new automatic email sequence of emails that has, I believe, 12 different emails that we send that are purely just valuable because we only send these emails to our clients when they sign up, and we basically send them emails about once a month or every few weeks that contain a lot of good resources for how to work with our assistants and a lot of really valuable tips. And that has also received pretty positive feedback from us. And of course, we should also always consider that, our company is still relatively affordable compared to hiring in the US or other countries. Usually our clients are paying between 40 to 75% less than somebody in the US. Okay. And 0% ghosting rate guaranteed. I mean, our assistants do not disappear. And the reason they don't is because we always make sure that people are going to go through this really long process to make sure they're going to be professional. So they're not going to just ghost us. And the reason we included that is because that is what happened to me in the Philippines, where, after a few weeks, the assistant I hired just kind of disappeared and there was just no way to contact them. So we as a company will always, back it up. We have also emergency contacts of the people that we hire in case they don't show up. We can always contact their relatives. Okay. All right, let me move on to the next one. So now talking a bit about, some of the options that we have. The most popular, like I mentioned, is hiring through the agency, where the price is as low as $8 an hour when you hire an entry-level assistant full-time. For us, full-time represents 31 hours or more. And then we also have the hire on your own through the directory, where you could pay as low as $5 an hour to the assistant, plus you'd have to pay a membership to our company. The typical membership is actually $5 an hour. $5 a day. Or you can hire 3 people at a time, where the membership goes down to as low as $3 a day per assistant. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go in depth into the pricing. Definitely, you're invited to come into our website and visit our pricing page to learn a little more, so that you can actually see that as well. Now, Isaac is asking, what is the commitment of hiring through the agency? Great question. The commitment is actually really low. You have to commit to only hiring for at least 40 hours, which is very, very small. Now, if that means that you're hiring somebody full-time, 40 hours a week, with just 1 week, you have completed the minimum. Now, if you're hiring 10 hours a week, so then you'd have to be with us for at least 4 weeks. I hope that answers the question, Isaac. Now, Rob, do we pay assistants directly or VL? Great question. If you hire through our agency, you pay us directly and we pay them. We are based in California. We're an LLC, so for tax purposes, yeah, we would give you a 1099 from our company, and you don't have to worry about that. So we actually legally are offering you a service. You're not directly hiring the assistants. Okay. Sure, Isaac, you're welcome. Rob, I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know. All right. Now, here's an example of how we present the candidates. In this case, this is Andrea. She's from sort of Colombia and Venezuela. And this is how we present the profiles. These are these PDFs that we were talking about. Once we complete the recruitment process, we send you the top 3 to 4 candidates, and they look like this. Now, the second page could be multiple pages depending on how many notes we have. And they're usually actually like 2 to 5 pages of notes. But the first page, the one on the left, will always be the same, where we're going to include the picture, their name, their country. You see right underneath the photo, there's a little link that says listen to me. If you were to open that, it'll actually show you a link to hear their voices in English, so you can get an idea of how they speak in English. And then we include, their introduction, skills, education, their English test results, a personality test, their work experience, and then we also give you the top 5 to 6 bullet points of the highlights of the interview, and that's what you see at the very bottom. And then on page 2, which is the page on the right and on, we actually share with you the exact, sometimes raw notes of what we take when we interview these assistants, and the list of the actual tasks that we're going to be talking about. They're always going to be customized based on your specific tasks. So we never have these PDFs ready for anyone, right? Because we always customize this for each client. During that call that I mentioned earlier called the client interview, we're going to define the list of tasks you need help with. And so when we customize these notes, we're actually going to tell you how each assistant can specifically help you for each task, right? We give you their information so that it's super, super relevant to you. And usually that tends to be pretty helpful for most people. So they basically read this whole thing for each candidate, and then they select who they want to hire. All right. So I think that's it. So that's kind of the conclusion. Taking the right steps will ensure that you find, who you're looking for, that's ideal for your company, and knowing what type of tasks you need help with will help you figure out which type of assistants you need to hire. And hopefully, if you choose to work with us, Virtual Latinos would be happy to, of course, make this whole process easier for you, so we can help you hire someone and, help your business grow. So that's kind of it. That's all I have for today. I hope it's been helpful. And again, after the webinar, we'd be happy to share with you those slides. So now, of course, I open this up for any questions if you guys have. We still have around 10 minutes. Julio, thank you so much. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it. Hopefully this has been, very informative. And if you have any questions, I know you personally have my email, so I'd be happy to help you. Thank you, Claudia. I appreciate it. I know that I believe you're already in the process, so that's great. Thank you so much for trusting us. I appreciate it. And yeah, soon we will get you the candidates as well. Kevin, thank you so much as well. I appreciate it. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Ellie. Thanks a lot. Here's actually also a link. You can later, of course, book a call with me directly if you want to chat. Or, you can't obviously click on your screen right now, but once you get the presentation, you can click on it, or you can reply to the invitation from the webinar, and we'd be happy to send you the link. All right, Alejandra, maybe you can come back.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm sending the link. So if they want to click right now and book a call with you, they definitely can. And I'll be sending.
By the way, I think
presentation.
The link is wrong. Yeah, exactly. It was missing the dot. There we go.
So I sent it now. And yes, I'll be sharing the slides and also the recording of this webinar. So if you want to share this with your friends, with your colleagues, or anyone that might be interested on hiring a virtual assistant, you are more than welcome to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody who came and attended, and hopefully it was, some tidbits of great information to help you get started. All right, so if nobody has any questions, we'll end this, but happy to answer any questions again later on. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I appreciate it.
Jaime. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.